Next, let's queer up health. The Trevor Project report reveals disturbing impact of firearms on mental health of LGBTQ+ youth. Having firearms in the home can significantly impact the mental health of LGBTQ+ youth, many of whom already live in fear of mass shootings. A new report from the Trevor Project and Everytown for gun safety reveals that about 40% of LGBTQ+ youth have a firearm in their home. Among those frequently around guns, 43% reported higher rates of seriously considering suicide within the past year, and 13% had higher rates of attempting suicide. The report also highlights that LGBTQ+ young people in the South experience the highest rates of firearm presence in their homes, and that is at 48%. The findings underscore the urgent need for addressing gun safety and mental health support for LGBTQ+ youth. LGBTQ+ youth are increasingly anxious about the threat of mass shootings, finding themselves surrounded by firearms. The report also reveals that 21% of LGBTQ+ youth people have been personally impacted by a mass shooting, either directly or through someone they know directly. Derrick Matthews, director of research science at the Trevor Project, emphasized that Pride Month should be a time for all LGBTQ+ individuals to celebrate their community openly. However, the latest data indicate that amid these celebrations, many LGBTQ+ young people may also harbor concerns about the threat of mass shootings. For LGBTQ+ youth aged 24 and under, support is available through the Trevor Project Lifeline, reachable at 866-488-7386. Listen, this rings true to everyone watching, all three of us at the table. I'm 36 and I still work Pride events where we're in massive crowds of people packed into a bar, and you don't want to listen to that voice in the back of your head. But, you know, I survived Columbine. I grew up during all these horrible shootings that it's always going to ring in the back of my mind. And the fact that our youth are still dealing with it. I'm not surprised that the South has the highest rate, of course. I think that the South is the most irresponsible when it comes to the handling of firearms. I think we get into murky water is my favorite term when I think that, you know, there are a million different answers, but I think that we get into murky water when discussing whether or not someone should have the right to have a firearm in their home. I don't see why it's necessary, you know, to have it accessible when you have children around. But if you take certain courses, maybe you can get a certification here. Maybe there's a certain lock that you can put on the gun. I don't know what that answer is, but I do know that down here in South Florida, people are reckless. Yeah. You can have a gun walking into a Target without any sort of certificate saying that you did anything other than, hey, how much is this? Give me that one in the window. You know, how much is that gun in the window? Right. You know, so it's sad. The Trevor Project is way popular on the West Coast, so I'm happy to see it here, you know, budding up on the East Coast as well, especially in South Florida.
Well, you know, you mentioned that voice that you hear in your head.
It's sad.
These places. This weekend is Stonewall Pride.
Stonewall Pride, yeah. You don't want to say it out loud.
Well, and we did stories about the DHS and FBI warnings that we have to be aware, even more aware than we already are. We're already looking over our shoulders. Now we have to look everywhere this time. And the thing about the youth, I mean, LGBTQ plus youth have double the fear of their straight counterparts, because they not only live in fear of school shootings, but also the violence aimed at LGBTQ plus people. And I can't imagine having to live with that kind of stress at that age. I just can't imagine what it's like.
You know, Faye Watt and I are broadcasting on the main stage at Stonewall Pride this Saturday. The number one expense of Stonewall Pride is police and security. And once upon a time,
I heard that today.
We never, Sarasota, St. Pete Pride, I was intricately involved in the relaunch of Tampa Pride. It was not the major expense. Today it must be because of the potential risk. You know, the lead in this story is buried all the way at the end. And I just want to pull it out of the story that you just did. 21% of LGBT say they have been directly affected by mass shooting violence, or they know someone that has.
Who has.
1 in 5 of us say in LGBT, we know about mass shootings. I have to say, from my standpoint. Just as a reminder, tomorrow is the anniversary of the Pulse shooting, the greatest mass LGBT event, mass murder event in history.
Right.
I always, at this time of year, tomorrow will be the 8th anniversary of it, I just always remind people to remember Pulse. For me, I was dramatically affected. I'm this story. I'm one of those 21%. Working for me is arguably still today one of the most famous people that was connected to the mass shooting, which is Eddie Sotomayor, working for me. First name announced because he was famous in his association with RuPaul and the show. And I always encourage people, please Google Eddie Sotomayor and read about Eddie Sotomayor's life and what happened at Pulse, and even more important, what happened after a mass shooting. There are no winners. There is no good story. It is 8 years of anniversary tomorrow, and it's no better tomorrow for me and millions of LGBT Americans that have either directly been affected or know someone that has been directly affected by mass shootings. Guns are out of control in America. It's pointless to talk about we should have gun control.
Right.
But we do have to talk about the consequences of the guns existing. And their presence very likely increases suicide possibilities in the home. Guns affect us all dramatically, and we should do something about it. But it's a problem that we just can't seem to wrap our heads around.
Happy you're here.
We're remembering Eddie Sotomayor and everyone affected by Pulse.